Girls of Reddit, did you ever have a guy that you wished you said yes to when he asked you out? What is the story? My grandma just told me this story. In high school, she met this guy. He was very intelligent, fairly good looking and greatly humorous. She really liked him and she was very aware that he likes her as well. So one day, he finally asks her out and she rejects him. My grandma continues to say about how he turned out so well with money and a really nice life. So I asked her, well, why did you reject him? And her exact words were, I couldn't date a ginger. Old people. One time I said no because I was too busy with my exams. I had my head buried in my books when he asked me. The timing was all wrong. I regret saying no. Had a guy ask me out in high school. Really fun guy. Very nice, funny, athletic, smart, and good looking. I turned him down because I knew he had already had sex, and I wasn't ready to have sex at that time. It wasn't about his morals. I did desperately want to date him, but I just felt like I would never be able to make him happy, and I was embarrassed that I hadn't had sex. A few years later in college I ran into him when I was home on break. He's still the perfect guy, hasn't changed a bit. I screwed the pooch on that one. Using this as an example, all guys want to have sex, but if you're not ready for it and just want to date, then still say yes. You should be able to build a healthy relationship without sex. Then eventually you can get to the point where you have ravenous sex every night after a good day together. Had a very close friend in high school who really liked me for years. I was his prom date and all, but when he started to want to be more than friends, I was really hesitant, so I said no and distanced myself, even though I knew I should have said yes. Long story short, I'm Sikh and was rebelling against my parents' wishes to be with a practicing Sikh. Such a stupid reason. We stayed friends though. In college, I started to like him even more, but we both had so's. I kept thinking of telling him how I felt, but I kept these feelings in my head all throughout college without saying anything, and instead stayed with my douchebag of a so. And then when I was getting close to admitting everything to him, he passed away while on vacation with his family. Well, that turned dark fast. Two guys come to mind. Guy 1 was so sweet, and I did like him, but he was going too fast for my liking, saying I love you too soon, etc. He somehow lost heart in pursuing a relationship with me when I told him to slow down as it was making me uncomfortable. We rekindled our thing a few years later, but it wasn't quite the same and it didn't amount to anything serious. He's now in a long distance relationship with a beautiful girl. From what I can see from the outside of their relationship, he's a very sweet and devoted boyfriend. I sometimes think I missed out. Guy 2 was someone I really liked, but he was always talking to about other girls, so I didn't think he liked me that much. One day, he asked if I'll go out with him, but it was set up to seem like a joke, so I said no. That's ridiculous because I didn't want to appear too eager and vulnerable. I found out later that he was serious, but he wanted to seem casual. This happened in high school, hence all these stupid games. He had moved on to other girls by the time I found out, and went into a relationship with this girl. She was his first girlfriend. When they broke up, it devastated him. Then sometime after, we got together. I was his rebound, so it was doomed from the start as he wasn't over her. I thought that if I had said yes to him when he asked me the first time, I would have been his first and he would have loved me that much. Hence all these stupid games. Oh ho ho ho. They can go well into adulthood. I did this event at the Queen Mary and could not stop staring at this guy. I just thought he was the most gorgeous thing on the planet. My event coordinator noticed and ended up bringing him over the last night when they had a ball. We walked around the deck and when I told him how I had slipped and almost fell, he's like swooped me into a dip and said like this he tried to teach me how to dance, which he was great at. Told me about how he traveled and loved school and all the same things as me. It was the best, most romantic night of my life. I had to go back to my group and he stopped me on the stairs to kiss me and said this is the last chance I am going to have to do this. What do you want me to do? I told him I needed him to keep walking because at the time I was in an on again off again relationship with a total scumbag. I think about him all the time and beat myself up a lot for passing on someone so great for someone who didn't care about me. If I could redo one thing in my life, it'd be that night. Damn it. I think I watched this with my mom on Lifetime or Hallmark. crappy mental health. Don't feel like I could have a healthy relationship because of it. Back in my teens my self-esteem was so low it was easier to believe otherwise really nice guys were trying to make fun of me rather than that they were actually interested. Some of them were guys I had crushes on for years. Yay. Not really regretting, but I wish I had been someone else that could have given him a chance. He was all shy and cute and seemed like a genuinely good person. It was in the train, but I was in love with somebody else. Frick this gay earth. Well, there was this one guy who I served at the register I was working at who seemed nice and normal. He came back later and handed me his number and I sort of wonder what would have happened if I called it. I lost the number but I remember his name and know he probably lives in the area. In 4th grade, a boy passed me a note asking me whether I'd be his girlfriend. Circle yes or number. I was caught off guard, but my friend sitting next to me wasn't. I believe she said you. Rip it up, and I did. He was a nice kid. I should have circled yes, and I really shouldn't have ripped it up. That was very rude of me. Sorry, Jeremy. That would tear any person's heart apart. I hope Jeremy stayed strong. It was freshman year of college. I made eye contact with some random guy from across the quad. He walked over, sat next to me, and we had a short conversation. He invited me to his room before my friends showed up and dragged me away. Turned out we lived in the same building. I went to his room, and we talked and joked as though we'd known each other our entire lives. And constantly, this kick-butt engineer student was complimenting me, the mediocre biology kid, on how smart I was. He and I ran into each other several times, and there was always a palpable tension between us. But I was in a long-distance relationship at the time and I never went for it. I turned down the only guy to ever give me butterflies in my stomach and make me smile like an idiot. This one made the saddest. I hope you find someone that makes you feel like that again, and don't settle for someone that doesn't give you that feeling. Sort of, because he never asked directly, like, he hinted at it enough that I really should have gotten the picture, but I wasn't thinking about starting anything because I was moving 4 states away in less than a week. It's 3 months later and I still think about what could have been sometimes. I had the same mindset. I'm leaving in 2 months. Why should we even start something? We're 6 months together. It's her fault D. My main motivation for acquiring fame and wealth and muscles is to put a lot of girls into the situation you describe. That's healthy, right? You do what you gotta do to get the gains, and find your swallow maiden. My mom was waiting for this guy to get off stage so she could interview him for Buddy magazine, when this little weird guy comes over and asks her out. Her actual words were he was way too ugly. I was just too good for him. After I asked her why she shut him down, the guy turned out to be Stevie Ray Vaughan. She said that when the guy she was waiting for finally got off stage, the little guy got up and did a couple of songs. She instantly regretted treating him like that and tried to talk to him afterward. He told her I wasn't good enough for you before I played and nothing's changed. Glad he had some self-respect. Till that, girls will still say no to being asked out even if they like you and are available. So remember, no matter how much you think she likes you, asking her out is still just like starting a hardest difficulty game of Minesweeper on the smallest map. It really does boggle the mind. I worked for several years with Harry. We had a lot of fun at work, and also went out surfing, beach days, mutual friend stuff together too. Only gradually did I realize I was developing genuine feelings for him. I kept all this to myself, of course. He seemed way out of my league and I didn't want to make our work relationship awkward. Once he asked me if I'd go shopping with him to find some shoes. We went to the mall, found some kicks, and then he asked me if I wanted lunch. I said nah. I wanted to work out before work, so see you later. Didn't understand he was maybe asking me to lunch as a date until much later. Idiot. We continued to work together and hang as friends though, and we both dated other people. Eventually he left the job to travel and finish school, but still came by to hang out. One night we were all drinking and we went out back to share a smoke. We were pretty drunk, and I was sitting on this raised box thing and he stood in front of me and placed his hands on my knees, looked into my eyes and said tinfoil heartiput, "I love you." I've never been able to say this before. I love you. I've loved you a long time. And I said, oh okay. handed him the smoke and went back inside. I didn't know how to reply. I had inklings that he had feelings for me, but we never came out and said it. I had a boyfriend at the time and wouldn't cheat. So, here I am. Harry, if you read this, I love you too. TL. DR. Worked for years with my possible soulmate. He confessed his love and I choked like a fool. Even I got hurt just by reading this. Poor guy. At an end of summer party, this nice guy gave me his number. I was very shy and kept putting off calling him because I was nervous. Then I got caught up in the excitement of starting my first year at university and I honestly just forgot about it. Passed him months later in the hallway at university and he gave me this incredibly wounded puppy dog look and kept walking. I felt terrible. I hadn't thought it was a big deal for him. I know now it's pretty much always a big deal for a guy to work up that courage. In high school I had a huge crush on this guy, but he was one of the popular guys and I wasn't. But as luck would have it, we sat beside each other in Sof English and he must have thought I was pretty funny because he was laughing at my jokes. Fast forward to the end of the year, he and his GF broke up and after class we held hands all the way to the bus stop. I was so friggin' shy that I bolted when he tried to kiss me. We didn't talk much afterwards. I regret being shy. Nobody is ever happy about how shy they once were. I said no to a perfectly lovely guy who was just my type once because I was feeling a bit down and not like I could deal with the world of romance. I mentioned this to my best friend in passing one day and it transpired that they knew each other. My best friend managed to dig me out of my shell enough to at least go out for a quick drink with him. 2 years later I walked down the aisle towards him. We're now fulfilling a lifelong dream of mine by living in another country together and have a life full of love and adventure planned. Obviously I'd never have known this to regret it, but it's incredible to think how different my life would be if I'd stuck with my original no. I hate this story. It has a happy ending. Enjoy my upvote. No, can't say I said no to anyone who asked. Did I wish I had just grabbed that brown-eyed idiot who was in all my classes and told them how I felt? Yes, with my whole being. Grabbing people by the eyeballs is generally seen as a bad move. Well, it looks like I need to cancel my plans and desperately search this thread for women who I perceive to have wronged me. Thanks Reddit. So I am actually the guy in this story, but once I asked a girl in a chem lab at college out. Turned out she had a boyfriend, but her smile when I asked her was bigger than I've seen from girls who said yes. Wow, I can't believe how relevant this is to my situation. Throwaway just in case he or a friend recognizes this post. Don't want the surprise to be ruined. I had a really good friend in high school who, to put it lightly, was a man W. We were really close. He would tell me everything about his sexual escapades with a variety of girls, some I knew and some who were much older. Despite all these conversations, I started to fall for him. Underneath his reputation was someone kind and loving to all his friends. He was the type who would do anything for anyone. He was a great father figure to his younger siblings and was essentially the man of the house. Junior year, he revealed that he was starting to like me. He asked if I would be his date to our friend's annual New Year's party, but I was an assuming, ignorant bee, and I brushed it off. I was hurt that he would try to get in my pants. I thought I meant more to him than just another girl to mess around with. I never told him how I felt about him. Instead, I cut off ties with him. I started to distance myself from him little by little with no explanation. He would try to talk to me but I would try my hardest to avoid him altogether. I went away to college and he stayed in our hometown. After too much time thinking, I realized what I did was immature. Recently, we have started talking again and I apologized for being a huge bee. He told me he knew I'd come around again, but I'm happy to know he really does care for me still. He doesn't know it, but I'm going back home tonight for Christmas. I plan on surprising him. I'm going to ask him to be my date to the New Year's party our friend has every year. Frick yes, this is crap guys dream about. A guy asked out a girl I work with a while back. She said no, very rudely. She's very materialistic. Certainly a gold digger. That guy ended up being Luke Wilson, tight end for the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. She is very regretful. Good, she deserves to be if she's a gold digger. Well, I met a beautiful Italian architect when I was studying abroad. He kept in touch over Facebook. As soon as I was single again, he sent me a message telling me that he would pay for my flight to Vienna where his parents live. Then we would move to his flat in Paris. I said no. My education was too important. He got married to a gorgeous Russian girl a couple months later. Their wedding was straight out of a fairy tale. I would make the same decision again, but dang if I don't wonder what my life would be like. I'm a guy, speaking for a girl, but this story always breaks my heart. I asked a girl out while she was a waitress at a pizza place. She agreed to go out as friends and I spent the next 6 months plus politely picking her up, taking her to lunch or dinner and doing my best to not pressure her away from me. I was in the friend zone with no signs of escaping. My boss gave me great tickets to go see the SF Giants at Candlestick Park, so I invited her. She agreed. Neither of us were baseball fans, but it seemed like it would be a great experience. It wasn't. It was freezing. We had no idea what was happening, and when I suggested we leave, she agreed. I drove her home, and as I was walking her to the door I grasped her hand. The first time we had held hands. She yanked her hand back. I remember the words very clearly: "It's too fast." Okay. Message received. She had moved a distance away from me, so I let things go. I stopped calling her and she made no effort to contact me. Goodbye, Deborah. Several years later I had met somebody else and had actually become engaged. I got a phone call from Deborah. She was hoping to get together. I told her that I was in a serious relationship, so perhaps it wasn't a good idea. We chit-chatted a bit and said our goodbyes. A week or so later I got a card from her explaining how much she regretted pushing me away and that she considered me the one that got away. The funny thing is that I was so madly in love with her. To this day I think of her. My wife is amazing and I am so very lucky, but I always wonder what would have happened. Hey, dude. You've likely been at the receiving end of a documented psychological phenomenon called mate poaching. The name speaks for itself, although the reasons behind it appear not to be conscious. Women and, to some extent, men both exhibit these behaviors. Don't worry, there's probably no real magic you're missing out on, huh? In college there was a guy who asked me out who was weird and annoying, so I said no. Next year he came back hot as frick. Turns out he spent all summer working out. I regretted it until I invited him over one night and he stole my PS3 and my Yoda backpack. Be right back working out for a year. In high school I was asked to go to homecoming by this great guy. I said no because I couldn't afford a dress. I was too embarrassed to tell him or anyone else about it. He ended up going with someone else and I always regretted not being able to go. I wish I could have said yes. This is my wife's story, but it involves me. We were high school sweethearts and shortly after we started dating she was asked to go to a school dance by Larry Fitzgerald. She turned him down, noting she had a boyfriend. When she told me about it that evening she was surprised to hear my reaction, which was that she freaking blew it. At this point, Larry was already an athletic freak. Even in the 10th or 11th grade it was clear this guy was going on to big things. As life progressed and my wife and I started a family, Larry's career progressed and he continued to excel. I would occasionally remark to my gal that Larry had just hit another milestone, killing it at Pitt, winning awards and so on. When the draft approached and he was projected as a top 3 pick I again pointed out that she blew it. She would always respond with "but I was with you," or "he was kinda weird anyway." When he was selected 3rd by the Cards I again pointed out how she blew it. She shrugged it off. A couple weeks later I walk into the kitchen and she's holding the sports page. I ask what she's reading and she just says "I freaking blew it," handed me the paper and walked away. The headline said something along the lines of "Fitzgerald agrees the $60 million contact." He didn't ask me out, but we were super close. It was obvious that we both liked each other, until my friends and I were playing a game where you would have to say who you preferred to date more in the group of friends. It was my turn, and I jokingly said another guy. Of course he was so shocked, and it was only a few days later that I realized my dumb mistake. I was so frustrated at myself that I didn't talk to him for a long time. We talk a bit now, but he has a girlfriend. So much regret. TLDR. Don't be afraid to tell the truth. I was so frustrated at myself that I didn't talk to him for a long time. Girl logic. Yes, I knew this guy back in elementary, and since we've kept a Facebook connection after I moved away, I was in 4th or 5th grade and he came up to my door, rang it, to ask me out to the movies. I was astonished that he would, and I wanted to, but I was so embarrassed, I slammed the door on him. If I hadn't slammed the door, maybe he wouldn't have turned gay. 2 guys, both named Brandon. The timing for both was bad. Brandon 1 confessed his crush for me at the end of his senior and my junior year. Brandon 2 confessed after I just broke up with my boyfriend of a year, and I wasn't ready to jump into another relationship. The outcomes for both ended up being the same. We were never single again at the same times. As a guy, I've done this. It's 6th grade. I was one of the goofy weird types. Good looking, preppy cheerleader type girl asked me to a dance. I said no, and was convinced that she was just trying to make fun of me. Maybe not full on pig's blood dumped on me, but you get the idea. She kept asking the rest of the day and I kept being a stubborn prick. I still wonder to this day if she honestly wanted to dance with me. I worked in a library for a while where you were required to wear name tags that somehow represented your real name. I didn't feel comfortable with my first name, so I put my middle name on it. I talked to a really nice guy for about an hour and recommended a bunch of books to him. He came in a week later to ask if middle name was working. The lady at the circulation desk told him that no one by that name worked there. I never saw him again. He seemed like a really great guy. He never asked my name and I never asked him that first day. He probably thought I had lied to him. I'm sitting here reading this and wondering if any of the 30 girls I asked out ever regretted saying no. Have never gotten a yes yet either. Whoa, 30 girls. My self-esteem got destroyed when I got rejected by one. You're a bigger man than I am. It was my sophomore year of college, and I had a boyfriend. A nice enough guy but a total stoner without an ounce of ambition. He was away on a weekend get stoned with my buddy's trip, and I was bored and walking across campus to the student union building. It was a cold, blustery weekend, and it was honest to God like something out of a rom-com. I dropped a stack of papers and they started blowing around, and up runs the football player dude who'd been flirting with me off and on in one of my classes. He asked me if I wanted to go get some coffee for my poor, freezing hands, and I said what the heck. We opted for cocoa instead, and sat there for nearly 2 hours. It turns out he was an honors student and only played football to get the scholarship he needed. He was funny and really smart and so freaking gorgeous. I couldn't believe he was talking to me. He told me he came to see all my shows. I was a theater major, and he finally asked if he could see me again, really see me, and I wanted to say yes so badly, but I also couldn't cheat on my boyfriend either. I turned him down, and he told me if I changed my mind, to let him know. I ended up staying with Stoner Boy for another few months, and by then football dude had a girlfriend. I looked him up on Google once a few years back. He ended up becoming a doctor. He chairs a Special Olympics committee in his hometown and he seems like he's still a terrific guy. He'll always be one I wish I could go back and say yes to. If there's one takeaway message on this thread, it's to not stay with someone you don't really want to be with. He never exactly asked me out, but this dude, let's call him Dylan, and I were dance partners in the 3rd grade. Dylan was sweet but I only had eyes for Patrick. In high school Dylan had become Greek statue level hot and confessed that he'd always had a crush on me. I was already dating someone else and dang, I missed out. Yes, my best friend asked me to be his girlfriend when we were 16. I told him that I didn't want to ruin our friendship if things went wrong and we were better off as friends. I desperately wanted to say yes, but I didn't feel like he deserved to be saddled with my problems. I had been raped a few weeks before and wasn't in a healthy state of mind at that point. To this day, more than 10 years later, I question what would have happened if I had said yes. He's godfather to my child and still one of my best friends. He's been married and divorced, and when I ran into his ex-wife, who I never liked to begin with, she said they divorced because she couldn't stand that he was still in love with his best friend. I'm in a relationship with a great guy right now and we're living together and I can see this relationship lasting, but just on occasion, I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I gave my best friend a chance to be more than just my friend. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.